Hello everyone, this is Nitpicking Nerd, and today I want to talk about some of the rumors about the upcoming Star Wars movie, Rise of Skywalker, and I think a lot of those rumors are absolutely ridiculous. They sound like very bad fanfiction, and if true, it will make The Last Jedi seem brilliant in comparison, because even that movie didn't have so much ridiculous stuff as apparently in these leaks and rumors about Rise of Skywalker, which, by the way, with each new TV spot, each new bit of footage that I see stuff that I recognize from those rumors, and that kind of makes me worried that they are actually all true. So be warned that this video might have potential spoilers for episode 9. And I think the most ridiculous ideas in those rumors of what's going to be in the movie are all those parts which will ruin the old movies. And that's literally the worst thing you can do as a sequel, is that not only the sequel will not be good, but it will retroactively destroy parts of the old movies, and it will damage our entertainment from the old movies, because even if we choose to ignore the new movies completely, just pretend they never happened, but still if we see them we will remember them, and then every time we rewatch the old movies, somewhere in the back of our minds we'll also remember these new movies, and it might potentially damage our enjoyment from the old movies as well. And that already happened in the new movies when they said that they destroyed the New Republic. They had the First Order take over the whole galaxy, and so that basically resets everything to exactly how it was in the beginning of A New Hope. Once again, you have an empire controlling the galaxy, and only a group of rebels fighting against them, and the Republic is destroyed. That kind of negates the victory of the heroes in Episode 6, so the fact that they defeated the Empire, and freed the galaxy, and restored the Republic, and all of that gets wiped out in Episode 7. By J.J. Abrams, who just decided let's blow up the Republic and let's have the First Order just conquer the whole galaxy back again, and then that basically resets everything to how it was in the beginning of Episode 4. And so the sequels don't really move the story forward, instead they go backward and basically they reboot everything, they just do the same stuff again. Now in the movie we know that the Emperor is coming back, it's not just a rumor, we saw him in the poster, we heard his voice in the trailer, and so that's pretty much confirmed that the Emperor will come back in Episode 9, and the problem with that is that it makes the victory of Luke and Vader, or rather Anakin, pointless, because, Vader sacrificed himself, he became Anakin again, he killed the Emperor to save Luke, and in doing so also saved the galaxy, he freed the galaxy from this tyranny, and all of that gets negated completely if it turns out the Emperor is still alive. Now this is something that I have mixed feelings on, because some part of me does kind of want to see the Emperor again simply because I liked him so much, he was one of my favorite characters, just everything about him, I just love him as a villain. And also because he died so easily in the end of Episode 6, that always kind of bugged me a little bit, so because of that, part of me wishes he comes back simply to get a proper send-off, a proper final battle for him. And so for these two reasons I actually don't mind seeing him again if it's done well, because I simply liked him so much, and secondly because we never really got that final showdown, a final confrontation against this evil character. He was simply just taken out so easily, and that kind of ruined the satisfaction a little bit in my opinion, just like Boba Fett was killed off so easily by accident. And so because of that I wouldn't really mind seeing a continuation of the Emperor if it's done well, and if it's done for some interesting purpose, if it's done in a way that doesn't negate the ending of Episode 6. And according to the rumors, they're going to retcon Episode 6 and say that the Emperor who appeared in that movie was actually a clone of the Emperor and not the real one. And that I think is very ridiculous, because we always thought that Luke and Vader, they defeated the Emperor, which also caused the Empire to collapse, and so they saved the whole galaxy. But if suddenly now it's revealed that it was all a prank by the real Emperor, and that he never died, he was simply hiding somewhere, and it was all planned by him, it was some kind of a prank, that would make it all ridiculous. And so that whole sacrifice was for nothing, that whole final showdown was for nothing, and so that will definitely ruin Episode 6. So I really hope that part of the leak is not true, because that will be absolutely terrible. To say that the Emperor that we saw, who was basically the original Emperor, that's the first time we saw him fully, that was simply a fake, that was a copy of him, that's ridiculous. If he was the real one who simply transferred his soul somewhere else and somehow recreated himself, and maybe it took him a long while to do it, which explains the time gap, then it would make sense and it wouldn't totally ruin Episode 6. It was also done in the expanded universe. They did have stories about the Emperor coming back as a clone, that he's able to transfer his spirit into clones of himself, but those clones would quickly deteriorate and stuff like that. And so I wouldn't mind seeing such a story. By the way, there was a similar story in a Stargate SG-1 TV show, in which they had a character called Anubis, who was very similar to the Emperor, kind of a ripoff probably. And at some point his physical form was destroyed, but then his spirit started moving from person to person, and every time his new host would kind of deteriorate quickly, and so they actually had that kind of story in Stargate, and I thought that was well done, by the way, and so I wouldn't mind if they do something like that with the Emperor. But according to all these leaks, they will actually say that the Emperor who was in episode 6, that was the one who was a clone already. And the real one was somewhere else and controlling the clone from afar. And another big problem with reintroducing the Emperor is that it will come out of the blue, because they never set it up. They didn't even have any kind of hint to it in the other sequels. They had a new villain, Snoke, who was kind of like the Emperor in every way. And they never hinted that he's working for someone even more powerful or something like that. They never said that, they never implied that, and they never hinted at that. So it would be totally ridiculous to suddenly reveal, oh, there is a bigger villain, and it's the same villain from the old movies, who we thought died, but actually didn't die. He only faked his death for some reason, which is unclear. I mean, did he allow the Empire to fall? He allowed everybody to think he died, so that the Empire will fall for what? It doesn't make any sense. That's my biggest problem with it. And also, according to these new leaks, the First Order is not even working for him. It's its own thing unrelated to his empire. That he secretly still has a huge empire hiding somewhere, just waiting. It doesn't make any sense. If they reveal that Snoke was secretly working for him, maybe it will have some kind of sense to all of it, but they never hinted at that, so still it would be very abrupt, very inorganic to the story, that it wouldn't flow well in my opinion. Also, I think the only scenario in which I would have liked to see the Emperor come back is if he would have fought Luke. If Luke would have been the Master Jedi of a new generation of Jedi, and then the Emperor would come back and he would confront him and they would fight, and in the end Luke would be the one to finally defeat him, then that would have been satisfactory. That would have been epic. Because they had that prior relationship, and because both of them would have been the strongest of both sides of the Force, that would have made it all much more epic. But it's not going to happen because they killed off Luke. And I remember when I first heard about the Emperor coming back, I thought maybe he's not coming back in physical form, maybe it will only be his spirit, just like the Jedi ghost can reappear. Maybe some of the Sith Lords can also do that. Maybe that's the secret that the Emperor was looking for, that he talked about in episode 3, the way to cheat death and all of that. Maybe that is becoming the ghost, and so maybe he did know how to do that. And this way maybe we could see that kind of confrontation between Luke and the Emperor, with both of them being kind of in spirit form and fighting in that way. That also could have been interesting, but apparently according to these leaks, the Emperor is coming back in physical form and Luke is not. And in the end, Rey will be the one to defeat him, which is the most ridiculous part, because one of the most annoying things in the sequel movies is that Rey is overpowered. She has no weaknesses, she has no challenges, she just defeats everybody with ease, and that's a big problem because we don't feel any tension this way. And they made her much more powerful than any other Jedi ever, with no reason, with no training. And if she's the one who will defeat the Emperor, that will just add salt to the injury. It will just be terrible storytelling, just super predictable and just simply terrible. One way that might make it a little more palatable is if they show that the Jedi spirits are helping her out. Maybe if they finally explain the whole thing with the Jedi ghosts, which they never explained, because in A New Hope, Obi-Wan said that if he dies, he will become more powerful than you can ever imagine, but then later he never really did anything except talking with Luke. And in episode 5 he even said he cannot intervene, so that means he cannot do anything physical. And then in episode 8 we see the ghost of Yoda shooting lightning from the sky, so that means that he is very powerful as a ghost, and that begs the question, then why don't these ghosts actually do anything useful? Why don't they save the galaxy from the bad guys? And I think the only way to explain it to my satisfaction would be to say that maybe the ghost can only talk to a Force user, and maybe that's why the ghost of Yoda could only appear to Luke after Luke reconnected himself with the Force, because they said he disconnected himself from the Force, that's why no one could sense him. So maybe that explains why the ghost of Yoda couldn't appear to him earlier, and only after Luke reconnected with the Force during the movie, only then the spirit of Yoda could appear to him. And maybe the spirit of a Jedi can only appear in the vicinity of another Jedi. That means the Yoda spirit could not appear next to Snoke and zap Snoke, because maybe he can only appear in the vicinity of a Jedi that is connected to him, so in this case to Luke, who knew him in real life, so he cannot just appear to anyone. And maybe those powers of the lightning actually came from Luke himself. Maybe Yoda used the Luke as kind of a receptacle, so maybe he's unable to do that kind of stuff anywhere else. He can only do that next to Luke through Luke. But if it's possible to do that kind of stuff next to Luke, then it should also be possible next to Rey. Meaning if she becomes attuned to all the Jedi spirits, maybe they will be able to appear next to her and kind of give her all their energy and all their knowledge, and maybe through her they'll be able to defeat the Emperor together. So if we actually see that, if we see that all the Jedi spirits appear around Rey and that they all give her their energy, their power, and then she becomes super powerful and that's how she defeats the Emperor, then maybe I could buy it. If it's done well, if it's done in an entertaining way and in a tenseful way, and if it finally explains the whole deal with the Jedi ghost, then maybe it will be worth it. Also, if Luke appears as a ghost and does something useful, then at least it would justify why he had to be killed off in the previous movie. And it's something I complained about before. I said if Luke didn't end up actually doing anything important in this sequel trilogy, then why did Vader even save him? I mean, Luke didn't end up doing anything after that was useful to the galaxy. In fact, he made things worse because he trained Kylo Ren, who turned evil. And so, except for distracting the bad guys for 5 minutes in the end of episode 8, he didn't actually accomplish anything important. And so if they also retcon the Emperor as being alive, and say that he never even died in episode 6, then what was the point of Vader's redemption? Because he didn't even achieve anything. So he didn't really kill the Emperor, and him saving Luke wasn't really that important because Luke didn't end up doing anything useful for the galaxy, and so all of that was pointless. And that's my biggest problem with all of this, because without these new sequels, episode 6 was epic as it was, because we assumed that that's the end of the Empire, that Vader's redemption had meaning because he got rid of the Emperor who no one else could have killed. Maybe it can even justify him falling to the dark side in the first place, because that's what put him in that position where he could have surprised the Emperor from behind. So it can even be argued that was all part of his destiny, that he was supposed to fall to the dark side because only that way he could have defeated the Emperor. And saving Luke was so important because Luke would later go on to save the whole galaxy from other threats and so on. That's what we always kind of thought, and that's what was in the expanded universe stories and all of that. But now they retcon all of that. They say, oh, the Emperor didn't really die, the Empire didn't really get defeated, and there's a whole bunch more empires. So there's the First Order, which a few years later retook the whole galaxy. And secretly the Emperor is planning to come back with an even bigger force, and so it all makes the victory of episode 6 totally meaningless, and that's my biggest problem with that. Another thing that is in these new leaks is that Rey will turn out to be the Emperor's granddaughter. And that's actually something I was suggesting ever since episode 7. That's actually something that could have been interesting if it was part of the actual plot, but it wasn't, and so doing it now is kind of too late, and I doubt it will serve a purpose for the actual plot or the character arc, because it's like a last minute reveal which won't really change anything at all, so it's totally pointless. And it's another retcon, because in the previous movie they basically established that she's a nobody, that her lineage is not important, and I'm not totally against that idea, because I think it's fine to introduce new characters who are not connected to the old ones, so I didn't mind that idea. What I did mind is them setting up all that mystery and teasing us with it for so long, only to reveal that it's totally pointless, that it's a total cop-out in the end. So that's what annoyed me. And why didn't they explore the parentage of Finn? Why wasn't Finn looking for his parents? Why only Rey? And so it's totally pointless. If it doesn't lead to anything, to any kind of reveal, then what's the point of all of that? But now apparently they're going to retcon it again and say that she's actually the granddaughter of Palpatine. And I wonder if they will actually explain it, meaning show exactly how and when she came to be and all of that, or will it just be kind of a random throwaway line and that's it without explanation? That would be ridiculous. I also suggested the idea that maybe she can be kind of a genetic experiment that maybe the Emperor or someone else did to try to create the perfect Force user, because at least that would explain why she's so overpowered. If they actually explain her being unnatural, made in a lab, maybe from the DNA of the best Force users all combined together, something like that, I would have liked. First of all, because I'm a science fiction geek, and so having that kind of plot I would find interesting, and also it would fit that vision in the cave in which she saw herself multiple times, an infinite amount of herself, and that can be explained if they say that she's a clone, that she's a result of genetic experiments. Maybe they try to perfect her, and so they cloned her a bunch of times. Maybe there's another clone of Rey who is evil, who will be in the movie. Something cool like that I would have liked personally. and mostly because it will explain why she's so overpowered without any training. I even once suggested the idea that maybe she was made from the DNA of both Luke and Leia, combined together to maybe recreate Anakin, maybe to recreate the Chosen One, who has the most potential with the Force. Some kind of idea like that I think would have been cool, and also the idea of her being related to the Emperor I also liked, because I think that would have been the most interesting reveal, kind of similar to the Luke and Vader reveal, but still I think it would have been the one most interesting, because that could first of all explain why she's so powerful, because he was so powerful, and also I think that kind of twist should only have been done if it would have been part of the plot, and I think the plot should have been that Rey would have fallen to the dark side in this trilogy. You know, they always describe the dark side as the quick and easy way, and the light side was the one that requires patience and a long time to train and all of that, but if you turn to the dark side, you get everything all at once. And so I always said that the way Rey is doing things, it's like she fell to the dark side, that she instantly knows it all, so it's a shortcut. And so I think it could have been a cool twist to reveal that she was actually using the dark side, maybe without even knowing at first, maybe because of her connection to the dark side, because she's an offspring of Palpatine. And it could have also explained why Luke didn't want to train her in episode 8. Instead of having that whole thing about Luke being depressed and doesn't want to help anyone and all of that, which kind of ruined his character, instead have him know or feel that something is off about Rey. Maybe he knows her lineage, or maybe simply he senses danger from her, and that's why he is hesitant about training her, and then eventually he does train her, and then he sees that she is kind of lured to the dark side. There was a little scene kind of similar to this idea, which again didn't really go anywhere, but I think she should have actually fallen to the dark side in the end of the movie. Have the movie start out with her being trained by Luke, then she gets tempted by Kylo or by Snoke, and then she actually chooses to join Kylo in the end after they both kill Snoke together. Maybe in that scene in which he offers her to join him, maybe she actually agrees. I think that would have been the most interesting ending to episode 8. Have a cliffhanger ending, a dark ending in which she actually joins him, and then start out episode 9 with her being evil together with Kylo, and maybe have Kylo turn to the light side. You know, they did kind of show glimpses, they teased us with Kylo possibly turning back to the light in all kinds of scenes. So I think that would have been the most interesting story in this trilogy. Have Rey start out as the hero and Kylo the villain, but then by the end reverse them. Have Kylo return to the light side and Rey being evil. That I think would have been the most interesting story. Maybe in the very end have Rey redeem herself and have other villains, and so I wouldn't mind seeing the Emperor under such a story, because then it would explain everything. It would explain that the Emperor actually kind of mind controlled her, that he's the one who actually tempted her, maybe revealed that Snoke was just a puppet of the Emperor, or maybe he was one of his clones, maybe he was a deformed clone of the Emperor, which is controlled by the real one, and maybe the whole thing was the Emperor trying to create the perfect Force user, a new chosen one who will be in the dark side, just like he wanted to do with Anakin, and now he's trying to do it with Rey. Maybe even reveal that he wants to possess Rey. Maybe he doesn't have a physical form, maybe he's only a spirit, just like the Jedi spirits, only this one is a dark side spirit. Maybe he wants to create the perfect host for himself, and that was the reason for all these experiments. You know, just like Anubis in Stargate was possessing people as a spirit. So that kind of story I think could have been interesting. And then you can have Luke appear as a Jedi spirit and fight the spirit of the Emperor, and they can still show it in some kind of fantastical way, in an epic way, and meanwhile have Rey fight Kylo. And maybe after the Emperor is defeated, Rey can snap out of the dark side and return to the light. And maybe Kylo will sacrifice himself somehow to save Rey. I don't know, there's a whole bunch of things they could have done which would have made it all unexpected, interesting, with a whole bunch of twists. But they didn't do any of this. Instead it was all very simplistic, so Rey is just the hero all the way through. She's totally powerful without explanation. And if they try to cram up the kind of stuff I was talking about in the last 5 minutes, that's not going to work, because it will be kind of laughable. So suddenly you reveal everything in the final 5 minutes when it's no longer relevant. I mean, it doesn't really matter at that point, Rey's lineage and stuff like that. What does it matter in the very end? Would she act differently because of knowing all of that? I don't think so, and so that's totally pointless. It could have a meaning if they did that earlier in the previous movie. It could have been part of the reason in which she joined the dark side and all of that. But if they cram it all in 5 minutes in the end of episode 9, in the final showdown, it would be totally ridiculous and meaningless. Another rumor about the new movie is that they're going to kill off basically everyone of the old characters, only leaving the new ones. And so Lando, Chewbacca, C-3PO, all of those, according to the leaks, are going to get blown up. I don't really buy that because I can't believe they will kill off characters like Chewbacca or C-3PO, who they can keep literally forever because they can be played by any actor, and so they can basically milk them for a long time to come, and so I doubt they will get rid of those characters. Lando they will probably kill off. Maybe Leia they will kill off because the actress is dead anyway, so they will never be able to use her. Or maybe they will keep Leia alive just to not upset anyone, not to remind anyone that the actress actually died, but Lando is toast in my opinion. He's the one that I think probably will die. Also, according to the rumors, Kylo will fall down to some abyss and disappear, so it will seem as if he died, but they will do it in such a way that would be a little bit ambiguous, that maybe he will survive somehow and return later, which is also kind of ridiculous. Either you kill him or you don't. What's that whole thing about killing him in such a stupid way that is unclear? That would not be satisfying. Also, he's supposed to come back to the light side or not. It's kind of all very jumbled, very unclear. And if he does come back to the light side and they both will fight the Emperor, that again will mean the previous two movies are meaningless. So it was all about this struggle between Rey and Kylo on the opposite sides, but then they will be on the same side in the end to fight a villain who was killed in the previous trilogy. So I think it does have the potential of being a very terrible movie in terms of story. Maybe I will enjoy the special effects and all of that. So maybe I won't even hate the movie, because if it entertains me visually, then it's hard for me to hate a movie which I find enjoyable in some way, but the story is most likely going to be ridiculous. And a part of me hopes maybe all those leaks are actually true, and it is going to be kind of a dumpster fire, because in its own way it might be even more entertaining this way, because it will be like an unintentional comedy. So part of me actually hopes all those rumors are true. What I fear most is that it won't be even that, it will just be boring and bland, without any over-the-top ridiculous stuff, and then it can just be boring. And that's the worst way to go. So it would have been better off to have all these crazy fanfiction leaks be true. At least it will be entertaining as a comedy. So to summarize, I think they could have brought the Emperor back if they hinted at his return in the previous movies, if they set up clues to that and a setup for all of that. And if they didn't kill off Luke, then Luke could have faced the Emperor and defeated him. Or if he did die, then at least for him to come back in spirit form to do that, I guess it's still possible. But it would have been better to keep Luke alive and to also have him do something important. Not just a 5-second distraction for the bad guys so that the rebels can escape, which wasn't really that meaningful. Also, they shouldn't say that the Emperor wasn't the real one in episode 6, because that was the real Emperor, that was the original Emperor, that's his first real appearance. So it's totally ridiculous to retcon that. Anyway, that's my thoughts on this issue. Let me know what you think and we can discuss it in the comment section below. And I will see you all next time. Bye bye.